Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I didn't hear the ocean first. I heard metal, our world of valves and pumps and fans humming the same white noise that had cradled me for 90 days. The sea is mostly silence when you live inside a Los Angeles class. The ocean presses, and the hull answers with a steady, living creak. In that steel cocoon, I was Lieutenant Evan Reyes, reactor controls assistant on USS Havoc, a fast attack that had left Pearl under a cloud of classified orders and come up for breath off San Diego with more questions than oxygen. We came to periscope depth just before dawn, the boat rigged for red. The control room glowed like banked coals, ruddy light on faces, grease pencil marks on status boards, the quiet choreography of helm and plainsmen. The OOD's voice was low, almost reverent. Upscope. The captain, Commander Nathan Cole, put an eye to the dry well, turning slowly as if the world might fall apart if he moved too fast. No one spoke. Even the air felt like it leaned toward him. "San Diego," he said after a minute, more to himself than to us. "What happened to you?" I came forward from engineering to stand beneath the periscope hood because of what our radio tech, ET2 Marcus Hall, had already whispered into the captain's ear. "Sir, I can barely raise anything but bursts. Got fragments that sound like emergency broadcast, then static like sand." Hall had tried UHF line of sight, HF, even the slow patient belly of VLF. Our OE 538 mast reached into a sky that didn't answer. When the captain finally yielded the scope to the XO, Lieutenant Commander Maya Chen, I took a turn because I needed to see with my own eyes. The coastline was a smear of orange and black. Fires burned in seams along the hills and in the grid of the city. Smoke rose lazy and tall as if there was no wind left in the world. Coronado Bridge arced through haze like a frozen wave. I could make out the skeleton shapes of ships near Point Loma, and a tanker run up onto rocks like a toy left at the edge of a bath. "Navbase Point Loma is dark," Chen said, voice even but taut. "No pinned lights, no pier activity?" "Any traffic?" the captain asked. "Negative, channel's empty, shoreline fires from Mission Bay to Chula Vista. Could be wildfires, wrong season for that, could be other." The other hung there like a ballast weight we couldn't jettison. I stepped back and sank my hands into the rail, feeling the vibration of our circulating pumps tickle through the steel. Behind me, the sonar shack kept their heads down over green waterfalls of data. And BQQ-5 might as well have been a heartbeat monitor searching for the ocean's pulse. The towed array gave a long, patient ear to a sea that offered nothing but the soft shuffle of swell. No one said home out loud. Home was supposed to be a port rappel away. Home was a shore power cable and the sudden shock of space wider than a passageway. Instead, the captain ordered us to hold at periscope depth. No masts above what we needed. No more than a slow, steady roll in the swells. "General message," the captain said to the chief of the watch. "All hands, remain at stations. We are awaiting contact with Pacific Fleet Command. XO, rig for ultra quiet. We do not advertise our presence, Mr. Reyes. Keep the plant steady and quiet. I want us ready to go deep on a breath." "Aye, sir," I said, already ticking off mental checklists. In the plant we were good. S6G in hot standby, primary at temperature, 2 main coolant pumps on low to keep noise and signature down, with confidence in natural circulation if needed to drift. Vital bus tied to the reactor. Diesel generator ready, batteries at charge. The atmosphere scrubbers, a mine on rotation, kept CO2 under control. hydrogen burners whispering, O2 from the electrolytic generator good on stock. We could hide for another week if we had to. In radio, Hall got us a sentence at a time out of the EBS fragments. Civilian contamination, shelter in place, then a garble. Quarantine, interstate closures, another wash of static. Stay indoors, do not engage. The phrases felt like individual screws dumped from a toolbox, each a landing with a ping that echoed. As the day stretched, we drifted in our steel tube like a seed under the surface of a pond, watching a world above that didn't recognize us anymore. Our sonar chief, Senior Chief Marla Rhodes, tried to rope the anxiety into routine. Hold beams bearing 090 to 095, she told her team, and widen the passive search. Call me anything that isn't us. Nothing came but the background hush and occasional, lonely cavitation of a drifting prop. By afternoon, we still had no reply from Pacific Fleet. The captain pivoted. XO, we will not consume ourselves waiting for permission that may not come. We will conduct a comms window every hour. Otherwise, we remain submerged. Sir, Chen said, the crew's going to figure out what we saw. They'll worry. They already worry, the captain said, not unkindly. Let them hear it from me. He hit the general 1MC, voice across every compartment, through every bulkhead. This is the captain. We have incomplete information. I have seen coastline fires and lack of port activity. We are working every channel to re-establish contact. Until then, we remain at condition yoke. We conserve, we stay professional, we are Havoc. That means we stay silent and we stay smart. The words calmed the boat in the way that water calms a hull. We all returned to work, which is how you keep fear from growing fingers. In engineering, my watchstanders ran their rounds in pairs. ELTMM2, Sanchez checking primary chemistry, EM1 Patel nursing the vital distribution board like a musician tuning a delicate instrument. Hydraulics smooth, trim pumps alive but quiet, auxiliary seawater tempered. We dialed everything toward a whisper. An hour later, the first fracture appeared in the calm. It started as a faint cough in sonar. Seaman Tyler Briggs, a kid with the kind of Sharpie doodles on his notebook that told me his brain ran faster than his pencil. You good? Rhodes asked softly. He nodded too quickly. 5 minutes later, he was pale. 10 minutes and he excused himself to the head between control and ops. He didn't come back. We didn't mark his absence as anything but an upset stomach until the scream came over the forward ship's intercom. A thin, high note that cut the boat in half. Torpedo room, man down. The OOD snapped for corpsman, for security detail for the weapons officer. The captain didn't move. He simply widened his stance like the boat had tilted and he intended to stay upright regardless. I reached control's forward hatch right as chief of the boat, Master Chief Aaron Whitaker, arrived from the berthing area. Whitaker had the kind of presence that reset everyone else's body language. He pulled his EAB mask from its stowage, clipped it to the manifold and barked, "Rig the forward compartment for medical. Clear that passage now." By the time I got into the forward torpedo room, the world had narrowed to present tense. The torpedo room is where the boat pretends it has space. Room enough for MK-48 AD caps in their cradles, for the hydraulic cradle rails, for the forward escape trunk that doubles as the tightest elevator you've ever used. It smelled of oil and the faint tang of seawater. 2 sailors were down. One was Briggs, his lips an eerie gray, his chest still, eyes half open and unfocused. The other was Seaman Carver, kneeling and holding his forearm like a parent holds a sleeping child, blood seeping between his fingers. "Don't touch your face," HM, one Lisa Nguyen said calmly as she knelt by Briggs. Everyone who touched him step back and clip in. She had an EAB hose over her shoulder and nitrile gloves already on. The ambient noise, the boat's heart, sounded suddenly too loud. "Pulse?" Whitaker asked. "Absent," Nguyen said. "We'll start compressions." We tried. Human beings don't just stand by. But something was wrong in a way none of our training addressed. Briggs's skin was cool already, his pupils slow. I counted out compressions with a steady, practiced cadence, my hands making that movement we all learn and hope never to use. Nguyen ventilated with a bag mask, her face calm and focused. After 2 minutes, then 5, then 10, she looked at the captain, who had arrived wordless and watchful. She shook her head. "Time," the XO said quietly. Nguyen said it aloud because that was the ritual. Time of death, 1420. We stood there in the torpedo room like a tableau, the torpedoes themselves silent witnesses, while Nguyen taped a tag onto Briggs's uniform. She turned to Seaman Carver. "Let me see your arm." He peeled his hand away to show a bite-shaped pattern through fabric. The pattern looked impossible. It didn't bleed much. That was somehow worse. "Who bit you?" Nguyen asked. Carver's eyes flicked to the body on the deck and away again. "He did. When he fell, he grabbed me. I thought he was trying to get up." Nguyen did 2 things at once without any drama. She cleaned and wrapped the wound, and she turned to the captain. "Sir, we need to isolate forward. Rig material condition Zebra to the forward bulkhead. Everyone who's been in contact to medical for observation. And we need to stop thinking about this as a simple casualty." The captain nodded once. "Chief, make it so." We sealed the forward bulkhead. Material condition Zebra means you pretend water is on the other side of every door and it wants in. Dogs locked, gaskets seating with that rubber squeal that means safety. We pulled EAB hoses like lifelines. As the boat tightened itself, so did something in my chest I hadn't felt since my first dive. The realization that space and air are privileges we borrow from the sea and from each other. We carried Briggs to the small space we dignified with the name medical. We set a watch over the body because it felt like the right thing. Nguyen drew blood from the contacts, including Carver. She set up the simple test panels, lateral flow strips we'd carried for a different illness entirely, added improvised reagents from the ship's stores, and waited for lines to appear, for a scientific reason to anchor to. "Sir," Hall called from radio not long after, "I got another fragment." The captain answered on his handset, listening, his jaw muscles working as if they were chewing the words. "Do not allow anyone with bites or unexplained fever to enter enclosed areas. Latency, unpredictable, remain isolated." We stood in the medical space listening to the captain recite the words to us himself, because he didn't like passing on fear secondhand. "We'll assume this is infectious until proven otherwise. We will isolate forward. We will watch each other for symptoms. We will not permit panic. Understood?" Heads nodded. The boat breathed, the pumps hummed, the metal rested. Night is a concept submerged. Dials do not know it. Watch bills only honor it by tradition, but we live by it anyway, and that first night was when the steel began to sound like a settling house. Clanks that you understood were just temperature shifts. Except some of the noises were not the boat. The first came at 0200, a shout in the forward passage and the slam of steel on steel that vibrated in the soles of my feet. The tadpole phone on the bulkhead near engineering rang. I answered out of habit. "This is Reyes." "Forward," came a voice, breathless. I couldn't locate who. "He's up. Sir, he's—" The line crackled. "He's moving." I ran, clear through the engine room lower level, through the control void, down the ladder to the forward end. Whitaker was there already, body between the sealed bulkhead and the sailors behind it. The wheel of the watertight door spun under hands that were not supposed to be on our side. Hands beat at the steel. A voice on the other side moaned and gurgled in a way that made Nguyen's face go pale. She didn't say, "He came back." She didn't have to. We had to make a decision no checklist covered. The XO said it in the tone of someone who has already tallied the options and dislikes everyone. We keep that door shut. We do not open it for any reason. Someone whispered through tears that Carver was on the far side, that he'd been bitten, but he was still himself. Someone else reminded us that still himself could change faster than a breath. We kept the door shut. The next day, we worked like people trying to pay off a debt that kept growing interest. We checked on the plant as if the reactor were an old friend whose mood mattered more than ours. I brought the S6G down a hair, lowering noise, simplifying our thermal signature. I briefed the captain. We can run natural circulation if we need to. We can cool on decay heat if we scram. As long as we keep seawater to the heat exchangers, we're safe. But if seawater stops, even at shutdown, we'll need the diesel and batteries to keep cooling. This is a machine that rewards patience and punishes neglect. He nodded. We will not neglect it. On the mess decks, where food had always been a currency for morale, our CS-1 ran a stripped-down galley, simple meals, packaged snacks. The crew ate in shifts, quiet, eyes snapping to the 1MC at every click. Rhodes kept sonar's attention fixed on bearings and bearings alone. Hall and radio rotated frequencies as if turning them might produce a song. Once, a voice came through clear as a bell, that careful tone the emergency alert system uses when it is trying to sound both authoritative and calm. If you are receiving this transmission, remain where you are. Do not approach population centers. Avoid marinas and ports with large numbers of vessels. Infection spreads via contact with bodily fluids. Quarantine measures have static ate the rest. We played that fragment on a loop for a while because it was something, and something is a luxury. Then the wielder board lit with alarms. The alarm wasn't the panicked howl of a flooded compartment. It was the insistent chirp of a sanitary pump tripping and the growl of a ventilation damper refusing to seat. Minor, contained. Except that in a submarine, a minor thing can knock on the door of a major one, and then they're having dinner together. By the second night, the forward compartment had gone from quiet to a muffled chaos. Thumps, skittering, the metal ring of something hard against a ladder. "They're in the escape trunk," someone said softly, as if speaking at normal volume might draw attention. We tightened the zone boundaries. We pulled ammunition from the ship's small arms locker, M9 pistols checked and counted, M4 carbines issued only to the security detail, 2 Mossberg 500S brought up with their sleeves of shells. We are a warship, yes, but the violence we train for is clean and far away. A tube floods, a weapon swims. An explosion happens in black water miles from anyone. Close quarters inside your own ship is a different kind of math. When Carver called our names from the other side of the door, voices cracked. Nguyen stood close with her hand on the wheel, breathing through her nose like a diver before a plunge. "I'm here," she said plain. "We're not opening." "I'm okay," he said, and coughed a little. "It's just me. Please." "This isn't punishment," Nguyen said, voice steady, tears not quite falling. "This is how we protect the rest of the boat." She turned away and we kept the door shut while something thumped against it gently, again and again, until it didn't. By day 3, morale cracked like brittle paint. The CO's calm sounded more like a mask. The XO's orders carried an extra edge. The crew spoke in short sentences and did not linger in passageways. We ran more drills than usual because drills feel like decisions that haven't hurt anyone yet. At 1100, the captain called a meeting in the wardroom. Officers, chief of the boat, corpsman, senior chief sonar, weapons. We took the food off the table and replaced it with options. "The forward compartment is compromised," Chen began. "We can't pretend otherwise. We've sealed it. That buys us time. But we are on a clock." "Can we vent forward, overboard?" Whitaker asked. "Flood and clear?" "That's a last resort," I said, "because forward is where the torpedoes live, and filing them under flood and clear made my skin cold. We could secure forward to deep depth, but we'd lose offensive capability. Might also set off unwanted noise, and it won't address the larger problem." "What problem, larger than losing the nose?" Weapons Officer Lieutenant Samir Patel asked, half trying to be funny, half failing. "The one where we're alone," Hall said from the doorway without coming all the way in. "I got another EBS fragment. They're consistent now. Avoid ports, avoid crowds, stay put. But they all sound old. We might be hearing ghosts." Nguyen folded her hands. "We have at least 2 sailors in observation with fever. No signs of anything else yet. We can't predict who's next. The incubation seems inconsistent. We don't have lab equipment beyond basic panels. We can make indirect guesses, but we can't promise anything." The captain listened. He had that square-shouldered stillness that made him a good person to look at when the world wobbled. "2 options," he said finally, and the silence thickened like syrup. "1, we scuttle. We set the reactor in permanent safe shutdown, flood compartments, open main ballast vents, and take her to the trench. We remove a strategic asset from the surface and prevent it from falling into hands that might misuse it." "Whose hands?" Rhodes asked softly. "Sir, with respect, who's left?" "That brings us to option 2, the captain said. "We surface. We risk contact with whatever is above. We try for survivors, for information, for a successor chain of command. We could head for San Clemente Island. Wilson Cove is Navy, might hold out. Or we could stand off the coast and hail. Either way, we leave the unknown for the lesser unknown." He looked at me. "Mr. Reyes, reactor implications." "If we scuttle," I said, "we scram. Maintain residual heat removal via natural circulation as long as we can, then flood. At depth, seawater is a heat sink. We'd monitor until we can't. We'd sink clean, sir. If we surface and take damage to seawater systems, we'll need the diesel and batteries for cooling if we lose main seawater. It's manageable, with risk." "Everything is manageable with risk," Whitaker said, and when he laughed, it was the sound of someone who hadn't had enough sleep in a lifetime. "I'm not blind to the emotional weight here," the captain said. "We may have sailors above this waterline with families on that shore. We can either go down now, leaving a record the sea will keep, or we can try to thread this needle and risk making things worse." He paused. "I will hear the XO." Chen met his eyes. "Sir, we are a boat designed to operate independently. Our training is literally to go where comms are thin and come back with results. If there are survivors, if there is a functioning element of Navy or Coast Guard at Point Loma or San Clemente, we can contribute. We owe that attempt." "And if the infection gets aboard in earnest?" he asked. She didn't look away. "It may already be aboard in earnest. At least topside we can put people in the wind and sun, separate, decontaminate. Below, we are a sealed jar. Every hour we stay submerged, the odds tilt toward more of us getting sick in here." It wasn't mutiny, not yet. It was an honest split in the way we thought the world wanted to be approached. If you spend long enough under pressure with the same people, you begin to move as a flock. Here, for once, we split like 2 schools of fish, both right in their own way. The captain rubbed his eyes, and for a heartbeat he looked his age instead of his rank. "We'll give it one more day," he said. "If we have no contact by then and no improvement forward, we will surface. XO, prepare a plan for a short, controlled exposure at night. Mr. Reyes, ensure we can cool and keep quiet if we lose a pump. Chief, arm but do not escalate. Nguyen, you have authority to isolate anyone you think might be a risk. We move as one, or we do not move at all." We had our 24 hours. In that time, the forward noises turned from frantic to periodic. Once, we heard the steady scrape of something hard on metal, measured like a metronome. The crew began wearing gloves as if infection lived on every surface. We ran decontamination drills in the aft escape trunk, even though no one wanted to think about climbing into a space that small and sharing air. At 23 o'clock the following night, we did what submariners do best. We prepared. Sonar cleared our baffles. We raised the ESM mast for a taste of the electromagnetic air, flat as water. We brought the boat to a gentle ascent, bow rising like a careful breath. "Open main ballast tank vents," the chief of the watch called. "Up bubble 5, 3, 0, depth 15 feet, 10, 5 mark, surface." Breaking the surface felt like waking. The boat heaved a little, as if surprised by freedom. I always forget the sound of actual wind until I hear it again. It's alive in a way machinery is not. The OOD took us to all stop. Roads scanned with surface search. Chen took the periscope and then we came topside in a small team, masked and gloved, weapons slung, EABs ready to clip if we needed to duck back down. The air smelled of smoke and salt. The sky had a red smear along the horizon where the fires painted it. "Quiet," Whitaker said softly, unnecessarily. The ocean lapped. Something clanged gently against a hull we couldn't see. Farther out, a buoy bell rang at patient intervals, the sort of sound that had comforted sailors for generations. It did not comfort me then. "Lifeboat, bearing 085, about half a mile," Rhodes said from the bridge. "Looks adrift." Through night vision optics, I picked out a raft. Orange canopy collapsed, motes of reflection where the water touched it. Something inside the raft shifted. A hand, human, rose and fell like it had been trying for a very long time. "Survivors," Chen said, voice flat in a way that told me she was trying not to put hope in that word. We brought Havoc alongside, not close enough to bump, close enough to cast. A line danced in the air and landed true. The raft drew near with a squeak that ran right down my teeth. Nguyen stood ready with a medical bag and a spray bottle of disinfectant she'd concocted from ship's stores. We opened the raft canopy carefully. 2 people blinked at us. A man and a woman. Both were sunburned, lips cracked, faces lined with exhaustion. No obvious wounds. No fever that we could feel through glove and caution. They cried without sound for a moment, and then the woman collected herself. "Coast Guard," she whispered, voice hoarse. "Sector San Diego told us to make for open water. Then they stopped answering. We were on a sailboat out of Shelter Island. We were—" She swallowed. "There were people on the docks who didn't talk. They ran like—" She shook her head. "We left." "Names?" Nguyen asked gently. "Amelia Vargas," the woman said. "This is my brother, Daniel." "Any bites? Scratches?" They shook their heads. We looked at each other, and the decision moved unspoken between the captain and the XO. "We don't have the ability to take many," the captain said, honest. "We can take you aboard for screening and we can bring you to a safer spot if we find one." "Please," Amelia said simply. We set the aft escape trunk as a decontamination chamber. Out came the compressed air sprayers with disinfectant. Off came their outer clothing into a sealed bag. Nguyen examined them head to toe with a gloved gentleness that kept their dignity intact. We gave them water, then more slowly, then a little more when the color began to return to their faces. We assigned them the small compartment outside the weapons office, close enough to watch, far enough to keep separate airflow. The boat shifted to include 2 new heartbeats. We weren't alone on the ocean. That truth arrived like a flicker of lighthouse in fog. On the horizon, a string of small craft drifted. Sailboats hove to, a small motor yacht with fenders forever kissing nobody. A sport fisher slowly turning in a circle that a current owed no one. Fires flickered ashore in a constellation that made no sense. Over the radio, we sent a simple hail on maritime frequencies. U.S. Navy warship, position masked. If you are in need of assistance and uninfected, flashlight to the sky 3 times. We waited. Far astern, a light blinked 3 times with a steadiness that made the hair on my arms rise. Bearing 110 about a mile, Rhodes said. Looks like a Catalina 36, 1 person on deck. We argued with ourselves and lost in favor of trying. We closed. The person on deck waved with both arms and then stumbled, catching themselves against the mast. Nguyen looked at them long and hard through binoculars. Skin is flushed, could be sun, could be fever. We have limited capacity. We cannot become a fairy. We can deliver water and food and a radio, the captain said, deciding in real time, adjusting to a role none of us had rehearsed. We help without sinking ourselves. So we rigged a transfer. We put a case of water and rations in a dry bag, tied it to a heaving line, and sent it over with a handheld VHF set to 16. Keep to open water, Chen called through a cone of her hands. Do not approach shore. If you feel unwell, isolate yourself on deck. We will broadcast where we can. You are not alone. Sometimes, help is knowing someone else sees you. An hour later, the night gave us the price of surfacing. It came as a distant splash, then a bump along our starboard side, then the soft tap-tap of something small against steel. "What is that?" Whitaker asked. I looked over the side and saw lifeboats. Not 1, not 2, but 3. Tan fabric faded and rubber scuffed by the sea. 2 bumped together gently. The 3rd bumped us. "Careful," Chen said, her voice very low. Then a sound drifted out of one raft that made everyone stop breathing at once. A low, ragged exhalation that was not sleep, not speech. A hand, darkened with something we didn't name, reached over the edge and patted at the side of the raft, uncontrolled, like an animal discovering the boundaries of a cage. We do not engage," the captain said quietly. We pushed them off. "Sir, what about—" Someone stopped themselves from saying, "What about the people?" "We do not engage," he repeated, and his voice was as kind as it could be while still being command. "We are not equipped to do this. We will not bring it aboard." We used boat hooks to push the rafts away. It felt like tending fires. Nudge, nudge, keep the heat from licking our hands. The rafts drifted. We stood long enough to watch them go from shapes to shadows to pieces of the darkness. It was a mercy that didn't look like one. In the days that followed, we moved in a careful dance near the surface, submerging by day, surfacing at night, lending water and calm where we could. Amelia and Daniel recovered enough to tell us that on the last day the shore had changed, the news had changed with it, and then both stopped altogether. People were kind until they were scared, Daniel said. Then they were loud, then they were quiet again. Inside the boat, time wasn't kind. HM Wan Nguyen's observation list grew by small, unwanted increments. He has a fever, or she has a cough, or he feels fine but look at his eyes, and then the math of distance began again. We lost 2 forward compartments to isolation. We kept watch on the sealed door like it was a boundary marker between 2 countries. The split that had opened in the wardroom widened. It did not turn into shouting or slammed fists. It became something worse for a tight crew. The respectful distance that means each side has decided the other is wrong in a way that matters. The captain leaned toward scuttling with each new unknown. The XO leaned toward trying with each light that blinked 3 times. The breaking point came with a coolant alarm. It was not the catastrophic scream that haunts the training films. It was a chime that might have announced a coffee machine finishing a brew, and that mismatch made my stomach flip. Primary loop differential temperature rising. EM1 Patel called. Main seawater delta T trending up. We've lost efficiency at the heat exchanger. Seawater strainers? I asked. Clear, he said. Engineers, I called into the 1MC. This is Reyes. Stand by for possible shift to diesel. We may need to keep cooling on backup. In English, even at shutdown, the reactor sheds heat like a living thing. We bleed that warmth into the ocean via loops that touch but do not mix. If the ocean stops taking it as well, biofouling, damage, a pump running ragged, then we have to give the plant help to keep sleeping. Help uses fuel and time and morale. Chen was on my elbow in seconds. Can we hold if we go deep? Cooler water? Maybe, I said. But our head loss might beat our pumps, and I don't want to run the reactor hard until I know why we're losing efficiency. I met the captain's eyes. Sir, if we're going to scuttle, the plan is cleaner now than it will be later. It was like saying a word that opens a door. In the space of a breath, the wardroom meeting moved to control and became an all-hands truth. We have aboard an unknown infection, the captain said on the 1MC, voice firm and warm both. We have lost forward sections. We have survivable but not unlimited cooling. If we keep the boat, we must accept the risk of losing her to this infection later in a way that endangers the coast. If we scuttle, we remove that risk forever but remove ourselves from the fight to help. He paused. I cannot pretend I know what the right answer is. I can only tell you the one I believe keeps the most people safe. I judge that we must scuttle. The XO stood in control and didn't touch the periscope, which is how I knew she was controlling herself. Captain, we have survivors we promised to help. We have the ability to get to San Clemente, to Wilson Cove. If there's anyone left with authority, they'll be there. We can hand over the boat, or at least hand over a video record and knowledge. Going down now makes us a quiet secret. Surfacing makes us part of the solution. The boat held its breath around them. Even the sea seemed to wait. I don't know when I decided what I decided. It might have been when Amelia poured coffee for our watchstanders with the calm of someone who had rebuilt her sense of purpose aboard a nuclear submarine in the span of 2 days. It might have been when I heard the slow scrape, scrape, scrape forward and was grateful I couldn't see. It might have been when I thought about the reactor's steady, patient warmth and the way it was designed to take care of itself if you took care of it. What I knew was this. Scuttling was clean and it was right, but it was not the only right. I said, Sir, we can run the plant in deep shutdown and keep it safe enough. If we are going to try San Clemente, the water is cooler there, the air is clearer, and the island is navy. If there is a chain of command to hand ourselves to, it will be there. If we find none, we can scuttle in deep water off the island's steep shelf and keep the risk away from the coast. We don't have to choose between never and now. We can choose last resort. The captain looked at me long and not unkindly. You understand that if I read this wrong, we become a problem for someone else. Yes, sir, I said. But if you read it right, we might become an answer for someone else, too. He closed his eyes for a heartbeat. When he opened them, he looked like the man who had taken a boat full of people into the dark and intended to bring them out again. XO, he said, plot us to San Clemente. We surface at last light, run ahead submerged and come up 5 miles out. We keep speed down. We keep signatures low. We talk to no one we don't have to. And we accept no one aboard without Nguyen's yes. He turned to me. Mr. Reyes, you have the plant. Keep us safe. If at any time you judge we are risking the core beyond our ability to control, you say the word and we go down. Do you understand? Aye, sir, I said, feeling both 10 feet tall and very small. I will say the word. We went. The ocean between Point Loma and San Clemente is a steady grade from the shelf toward blue water, punctuated by canyons that fall away like the world is missing pieces. We ghosted over the La Jolla Submarine Canyon with a kind of reverence. It felt like passing a colleague on the street without saying hello. We went deeper during the day, shallow at night, running the patterns that had kept us safe from surface eyes and ears. Above us, the world was a faded map. Below, a place designed to like us. At last light on the second evening, we came up. The wind had shifted. The fires ashore looked less angry, their orange more muted against a sky that had decided to do its job and turn black. The ocean was the same as it ever was, waves shouldering us with the same careless affection. Ahead, a dark smudge grew into an island. Wilson Cove on San Clemente has a simplicity that charmers never understand. A pier, a few buildings, the geometry of logistics. Tonight, it was a silhouette with a single, stubborn light. Broadcast on guarded frequencies, the captain said. This is United States ship Havoc, fast attack submarine approaching offshore. Any friendly station, respond. Static. Try again. We tried again. A voice came back so sudden and clear that even the sea seemed to pause. Havoc. This is Island Base. Identify with your hull number and the name of the commanding officer. Island Base, the captain said, and his voice decided to be formal because relief is easiest in a uniform. This is Havoc, SSN 7, Colorado, Commander Nathan Cole. We are inbound. A beat, then, Sir, are you clean? The captain did not flinch. Negative, Island Base. We have isolated compartments with infection. We have uninfected compartments and a nuclear reactor in safe operation. We seek to transfer knowledge and, if ordered, to scuttle off your eastern shelf. Another beat, then the voice came back older and more tired than the rank it wore. Understood, Havoc. Hold position 5 miles east. Do not approach the pier. We will send a small boat to a point 3 miles out. You will transfer by raft any records, logs, and a senior officer for debrief, plus your medical officer for infection protocol exchange. You will not transfer anyone else. If you cannot comply, say so now. We could comply. We did comply. We lashed a dry box with logbooks, external drives, and a handwritten summary of plant status and scuttling protocol to a raft we had carried for years and hoped never to use. XO Chen and HM1 Nguyen drew lots with the captain and the chiefs and cursed the luck that sent them into the dark in an inflatable with 2 of our best sailors pulling at oars like a team training for a quieter Olympics. The small boat that met them had the square shoulders of a Navy or Hib, crew masked and gloved, weapons slung but pointed at the water. A voice called across the wake the courtesy of someone who knows they're asking for a lot in a world with little left to give. Slow, stop, hands where we can see them. The XO did as she was told. We watched through night optics, breath held. They came alongside. Lines tossed. People transferred with careful, choreographed motions like a play practiced all afternoon for a single performance. We expected an immediate command to scuttle. We got something harder. Hold position. Maintain safe shutdown. We will evaluate with you. We will send you instructions for phased decommissioning or transfer based on wider operational needs. We waited. Waiting is what submarines do best when the ocean is quiet. We held at 5 miles, atmospheric systems turning like quiet planets. The forward compartment made us remember it every hour with a sound like an unanswered knock. Amelia and Daniel sat with us at the mess table and taught us how to cut canvas strips into bandages with an economy of motion that felt like a prayer. The captain stood watch with the junior sailors, because leading is sometimes showing you know how to do the small things too. I wrote notes to my parents I could not send and put them with my letter to the Board of Inquiry that I hoped would be a curious artifact someday. We did this because we believed it protected the most people. At 0400, the radio crackled like an old friend. It was the same tired voice, now carrying authority not just by tone but by the weight of a wider picture. Havoc, this is Island Base Command. We have your logs, the XO, and HM1 Nguyen. We have reviewed. Here are your orders. You will come to periscope depth and proceed south along the island at 5 knots, outside 3 miles. You will rendezvous with a Coast Guard cutter at the southeastern tip. The cutter will take your survivors and transfer supplies. You will then proceed to the eastern shelf, set reactor in long-term safe shutdown, remove your ship's identification where possible, rig compartments for flooding, and scuttle in the trench. This decision is made based on risk to the coast and your forward isolation failure. Your actions to date are noted and appreciated. This is not a judgment. This is an equation. The captain closed his eyes. When he opened them, he looked 20 pounds lighter in a way that had nothing to do with food. Understood, Island Base, he said. Execute on your mark. The mark came with coordinates, timings, the sort of clean framework people like us can wear like clothes even when the weather is wrong. We moved. The cutter, USCGC Blacktip, a name carried by a hull that had surely done more than it was built for, received Amelia and Daniel with a tenderness that made the air feel warm. We sent over medical notes on the two, food, and everything we knew about the infection that could fit in a notebook. Nguyen stayed ashore. She had work to do teaching people what we'd learned. XO Chen did not transmit goodbye on the radio, but the way she stood on the cutter's deck and raised a hand felt like the kind of professionalism that holds tears in one palm and orders in the other. We turned east. The scuttling plan was not romantic. It was checklists and valves, and the slow, solemn movement of people who have built a life inside a machine and are preparing to turn it into a monument. We brought the reactor to deep shutdown and made it ready for a long sleep. Borated water level set, primary loop full, natural circulation steady, instrumentation aligned to what would be useful until it wasn't. We secured non-essential electrical loads and transferred what we could to battery reserve for as long as it would matter. We copied logs again and left them in sealed containers in places someone clever might find. We removed plaques and nameplates because the ocean has a way of treating identity as a curiosity. We wanted to leave less for it to read. Chief of the watch, the captain said in control, voice the same one he used for all our dives. Open main ballast tank vents. Opening aye, Cow answered, hands on the panel like a pianist's. Valves thudded open, a sound you feel in your ribs more than your ears. Vents open. Flood forward compartments, the captain said. No one asked which ones. We did it gently because respect is not in conflict with steel. We equalized the forward escape trunk to the sea. We listened as the ocean did what it does best. It came in. Rig for dive, the captain said, because the ritual matters. Rigged for dive, Control answered, because a thing done once can be done forever if you say the words the right way. The boat sank not like a rock, but like a memory. She settled. The ocean pressed her in an embrace that was not unkind. We watched the depth repeater unwind. At the shelf, the numbers shifted from familiar to wild. The bottom fell away, and the world became more water than anything else. We paused at a depth that made me think of calendars. We took one last long look through the periscope. Nothing to see but the wobble of light from above, and then we went down. "Mr. Reyes," the captain said, and his voice was very soft. "Say the word." "Now," I said. We opened the sea to ourselves and ourselves to the sea. We moved through the last steps. Switches shifted from one state to another with the finality of a coin landing. The hull sang softly as pressure found its notes. The boat leaned, then leveled, then leaned again as compartments took water and redistributed weight. We rode her down, like you ride a bird's last long glide. In the bow, behind a door we had not opened, something tapped gently and then went quiet. The last person off a sinking submarine is the one who loves it most. The captain stayed until there was no more staying to do. He went into the aft escape trunk with Master Chief Whitaker and 6 of us. I was among them because the plant is your family and you do not leave family in the kitchen when the house moves on. The trunk was small and honest. We sealed the lower hatch, we equalized. The spray felt like needles on our cheeks. We shot ourselves to the surface like a handful of seeds. It is surprisingly noisy to be alone in the ocean. The air booms in your ears as it drains. Your suit whispers. Your heart remembers its job and does it too well. We bunched up gently, clipped our lines, inflated the raft, and watched the water where Havoc had just been scrapped the surface one last time, with a swirl that might as well have been a signature. The dawn did not care. It came anyway. A gray brightness that flattened the waves and made our breath look like smoke. USCGC Blacktip found us because we had told it where we'd be, and because someone ashore had connected our math to theirs and decided we were worth the fuel. They hauled us aboard with hands that didn't shake. They handed us blankets and hot mugs that felt like the best kind of science. The captain stood on the cutter's deck with us as the sun pulled itself up like a tired swimmer and looked west. "Permission to be a person for a minute, sir?" Whitaker asked. "Permission granted," the captain said, and Whitaker let out a breath that sounded like a prayer and a laugh and a goodbye in one. We did not watch a plume of boiling sea. There was only the knowledge of depth and the way it changes a thing's meaning. There was only the quiet faith that we had left a ship in a place that would keep it and keep others safe from it. Later, on the island, they put us in a clean room with air that smelled of bleach and the sea. XO Chen and HM1 Nguyen came in dressed like laboratory angels, faces tired, eyes bright. We touched knuckles through gloves and then we did what sailors do. We told the story, each from our watch station, each with our part of the truth, until the story stood up straight without any one of us needing to hold it. We gave them our logs and our mistakes and our small discoveries. That EAB masks made people feel less alone in a crisis. That you could use the aft escape trunk as a decent decon space with patience. That explaining why you were keeping a door shut was a kindness even when the answer stayed no. I wrote to the board again, knowing there might not be one, and to anyone who found our notes in a future where the sea had been convinced to give back what it had swallowed. USS Havoc is at rest east of San Clemente in water that forgives everything eventually. Amelia and Daniel volunteered to work the supply station at Wilson Cove, handing out water and radios and the sound of another human voice. The crew of Havoc scattered into work details, some to the island's watch bills, some to the cutter, some to the new, quickly drawn-in rings of public health and safety that defined what civilization looks like on a Tuesday in a changed world. The captain stood once at the end of the pier by himself for a long time, and then he went back to the work the island gave him. Sometimes at night, I dream the sound of tapping stops and I wake up before it does. On those nights, I put on my shoes and I walk out under a sky that has decided, again, to be generous, and I listen to the sea breathe against the rock. The ocean keeps its own counsel. It forgives without telling you. It takes, and then it becomes the thing that is taken. We entrusted it with a ship and a secret and a piece of ourselves. In return, it gave us distance and a place to set down the weight. We surfaced because we believed people were worth finding. We scuttled because we believed people we would never meet were worth protecting. Both things can be true at the same time. They were true aboard Havoc. They are still true on land. And when the wind changes and the fires settle and the radios find their voices, I hope they will be true again someplace else, where a steel hull hums and a young sailor listens, counting the heartbeats of a machine that still wants to keep us warm. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.